This is a special joint presentation of the Inferno and Torch Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Torch and... Dang, I messed that up. All right, where are we starting? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Torch, this special edition episode. I am Chris Mercer, your host. I'm also joined alongside Jaylan Scott, the co-host of the Inferno Blazers Sports Show. Links to his podcast and all the great things that they do are in the description below. We appreciate you joining us for this very, very special edition. And we have the absolute honor and privilege to welcome here into the show the head coach of Valdosta State men's basketball, Coach Mike Helfer. Coach, welcome to the show.
I appreciate it. You know, you guys asked me to come on here and, you know, we all have relationships. So I was very enthusiastic about coming and doing this with you guys. And if it helps you guys and it helps the university, I'll go anywhere.
Absolutely. Just helps us and just an opportunity, honor to just pick the brain of one of the great minds in basketball here in Valdosta State and just being able to just, you know, get to know you a little bit more as well, as along with our students as well. Jaylan, you worked this past season on the road with the men's team and women's team this year, and got a chance to know a little bit more about each other. So just this is a kind of a full circle moment here as we've kind of at the end of the year. So.
You can kind of say that. I mean, comparatively to you, I'm not big on basketball. I'm a football kid. Ohio State, grew up with it.
What position you played in football, Jaylan?
I played mostly linebacker and special teams, second string.
I know a linebacker when I
second string most of the time for 6 seasons. So football and swimming were my biggest things. So to go in this season doing basketball calling it for the first time, because I think I've told this story before. I had only ever called basketball for one other game, and it was my senior year in high school where I was calling a game in a separate recording booth, watching the game on a live stream, and I was calling the game from that.
Bergeron gives out to the right side. He's carrying to it again, fakes the pass, takes the three off the back of the rim, no good. And Harrison.
That's insane.
That was the only other basketball commentary experience I had prior to getting the nod from Mr. Caton that I'd be going on the road with you guys.
Man, that's insane. But speaking of, in terms of basketball, where did the love for basketball become, and when did you know you wanted to become a head coach?
It's funny to hear you guys talk. You guys are not going to probably believe me, but this is true. I was actually a high school football player for 4 years in Ohio. I also played basketball, but we only lost 4 times in football in Ohio. We won the state my sophomore year, my senior year, and lost in the state finals my junior year. So I had kind of equal recruitment for basketball and football in college and ended up choosing to play basketball. And, my love for basketball has always been there. But I thought this, when I got done playing in college, I thought, man, if I have to leave the court, let's just go to the front row. Yeah. And that was my theory. I just wanted to coach and stay and be involved with the game. And I was offered the opportunity to do that at Capital where I played. And it's just grown into a great career. And you guys listen, and you guys have your careers, you've got to find out where you want to fit. If you can be at a place where you can say, I don't feel like I have worked a day in my life, you're in a pretty good spot. And that's exactly how I feel about coaching. I love it. And it is work. It's hard, stressful. But man, I don't feel like I've worked one day.
Absolutely. So going into, now into your 20th season, but what was your first initial exposure to Valdosta State before you eventually became the head coach?
Yeah, let's say 20 years of Valdosta State. Prior to that, you were at Southern Poly. Is that correct?
That's right. For
Southern Poly for 8 years, so 28 total.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. Sometimes the longevity of it is incredible, but I still feel like each year is like my first year. But I was at Southern Poly. We had a great run there. We averaged a lot of wins for a lot of years. The Valdosta State job came open. Our president at that time, Dr. Dan Papp, he knew some people within the Board of Regents and here at Valdosta State. And, somehow there was a connection made. Herb Reinhardt was the first AD, and that I talked to down here. Obviously, Troy is now in that spot, but you know, had a great talk with Herb, and it just worked out. Like, blessed. Like, I'm just telling you guys, it was lucky.
I was just hearing to mention, because I had talked to you before when it happened, but when Mr. Reinhardt went into the hall, who we've had on the show last year.
That's right.
Yeah, we had him on the show last year. We talked about just, how much, what that relationship was like. What was that relationship like between you and Mr. Reinhardt, and how much did he really mean for you?
Yeah, for you guys have to realize, one, he gave me my opportunity here, but then Herb stayed, all the way for my first 19 years, and then Troy is my last year. So to be fortunate enough to work for the same AD that long is unheard of in college now. I mean, just ADs move like coaches move and find it. And so Herb and I have been here together, and I've always said this, you always have conflict and arguments, agreements, disagreements with whoever your boss is. But for me, Herb's like family to me. Like he's like, fam. I see him, I'll run over and say hi to him and give him a hug or whatever.
Yeah.
And he'll always be like that for me, because he was such an integral part of my career. And now Troy's in that position, and our relationship has been incredible.
Absolutely. So going into, of course, 20 seasons here, but then this past year has been, a complete turnaround from the year before, and only bringing back only 2 players in JC and Braxton Williams. What was kind of the vision that you had for the, going into the season, and how do you think, they've kind of lived up to that in this past year?
Yeah, so you guys, let's go all the way back to my Southern Poly days. We played and pressed like we did this year at Southern Poly, and Southern Tech used to be called that and got changed to Southern Poly. And so I did that there for 8 years. We averaged 26 wins a year. Like, we had a really good stretch. Came to Valdosta State, I wasn't sure you could play that way at this level, because you had more ball handlers on the court. You didn't have just 3 kids that can dribble. You had 5, 6, 7 guys. So we didn't do it. And then, we were very successful for a lot of years. And then I got kind of the point where, we went almost too big. Like, we were giant 2 years ago, and we weren't as fast as I would like to be. And so I just said, hey, listen, let's go back to what I'm comfortable with. It's winning. Nova Southeastern plays that way. West Liberty, Dallas Baptist, all 3 schools were in the Elite 8, playing the exact same way. So I thought, hey, listen, I've already done it. I know how to do it. Let's go ahead, since we have big turnover, recruit the kids that fit that system, and let's roll with it. And it worked, and the credit goes to the players for changing. Doesn't happen very often that you change your system like we did and have the success we did.
Absolutely. Just going into that year, you just see the scoring going up, how much the steals and how much turnover that you forced. And you guys were nationally ranked, like from December on. What do you think, what do you say into that locker room of, maintaining the, the expectations, but also staying within your game? How do you, manage that, especially during the year?
Yeah, and I think, with the current guys that were in the locker room, they all understood our vision from the get-go in recruiting. We explained it. I laid it out. I said, listen, we're going to sub every 3 or 4 minutes. Like, you've got to be okay with that and coming in and out. I said, here's my philosophy. We're going to trade minutes for wins. Instead of maybe averaging 35, 34 minutes a game, like maybe some teams do that don't press, Delta State, so you can go through West Alabama, some of the teams in our league that don't press and play up tempo, their kids might play 35 minutes. Our guys, Carlos averaged 26, 27. So we traded 8 minutes for 25 wins and a chance to be ranked and a chance to play in the NCAA tournament. Like, there's some value in that, and we found the kids that saw that value.
Absolutely. There's many different highlights of the game, and I would be remiss if I do not bring this up with Jaylan sitting here, who was on the call in second round of the GSC tournament, and Carlos Hart winding the clock down for that game winner. I think you had called the timeout break beforehand.
10 seconds. Tied at 79. Hart between the legs. Still going. He'll drive. Pulls up a shot just in front of him. Just by the free throw line. He gets it. He gets the shot.
What do you say to Carlos and the team in that moment when it's, it's in that point a hostile environment, considering, you guys were pretty much the only Valdosta representatives other than, the folks that made that.
Yeah, it was a near Montevallo home crowd.
Yeah,
it was a near Montevallo home crowd just because of how close Birmingham is to that area. I mean, also give credit to Montevallo as well. their arena, Central State Bank Arena, they pretty much took their home environment and put it in a neutral site.
Yeah.
So to face that kind of pressure, that was something.
Yeah, and when you get to those situations, we had played on the road and been successful throughout the year.
Road warriors.
Tough environments. We won 11-1 the conference on the road. It's incredible.
Yeah.
I just try to tell our guys, like, hey man, we've been here before. Like, this is a hostile crowd, but we've played in front of hostile crowds before and had great success. And the way that game kind of played out at the end, I mean, it was just, it was fun to coach. It was fun to watch. It was probably fun for people in Valdosta to see it. Like, don't get too many tournament buzzer beaters, and that's kind of what that was.
Fun to hear me nearly lose my voice.
Oh
that
my
night.
God!
He gets it.
And then to find out that obviously when we won, that I would have the championship game to call tomorrow.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, my voice is going to be shot tomorrow.
Oh my goodness.
And I distinctly remember after that game as well, like after I broken down everything, said my final remarks, finish up with our post game interview. I remember going around to a lot of the guys, and I told them, you guys are going to be the reason I have a job in the future. And if and when that happens, I'm going to come back and I'm going to personally thank every one of you because what other, and I know it's a rarity. It's a major rarity for someone to be in my position to have in his first season calling radio commentary of a basketball team that is one of the best that Valdosta State has ever have going on to the national tournament. So yeah. If and when I get a job,
I feel like I'm as the sports editor, I'm watching every single game, whether it's on the road or through Flow, and I'm listening, especially when Jaylan starts the commentary. I'm like, all right, I have him on my phone, so there's I think a 30-second delay before stuff happens on TV. So I hear Jaylen's call before the shot even happens. So I turn him down for a quick second until I hear a jolt of energy of they take the lead. I'm like, what happened? And now I have to listen in, and it's just it's a whirlwind of just how much of the fans have kind of grown with this team, and everyone's just like, oh man, this is a moment and a moment in time, and just that team really bought in, and especially you guys having great battles with Gulf South conference rivals in Alabama Huntsville, who this year just was on that tear, and you guys kind of matched up with them well. Can you talk about those kind of battles that you kind of had with them? And they've kind of been a big rival for you guys.
Yeah. Before I say that, you guys have to understand, I've been doing a long time, and I thank you guys for your interest in basketball and BSU and what you do. It's not just me and the players, it's everybody. It's cheer and dance who are at the nationals. It's you guys covering us, Jaylan. It's your not conversations afterward. It's not just us. It's everybody. We're all on a team. So number one, that's what I think. Two, if you look back at Alabama Huntsville, I mean, they had the best history or the best season in their school history. And you look at it, we here, and I don't want to say that we had them beat, but we had a chance to win that at the end regulation. Yeah. Kobe missed that tip in, and nothing against Kobe, but he just had a chance to win the game, and they beat us. And then in the conference championship game, Braxton misses that three. We're up 1. We really had a legit chance if that goes in to maybe, make a different outcome. Yeah. But credit to Alabama Huntsville. I've had so many battles with those teams, and Lenny Acuff, back when he was coaching there, is one of my dearest friends, even though we competed and, played against each other. A lot of respect for Mick and what he did this year. Just a great rivalry. Yeah. It's kind of if you look at our football team, we kind of have, some traditional rivalries, but obviously with West Florida having that most recent championship, and that's really the one you get some spice when we play them.
Yeah.
That's the one I pitched to. I remember that's the one I pitched to Mr. Caton. If I have that clip, I'm going to put it right here. But I remember
I see it in my head. I
remember kind of soft pitching it to him of. I think VSU West Florida should be the next evolution of the Red Clay rivalry.
have an idea. I have an idea that I'd like to pitch to you directly here. It's something that I've been formulating since last year with Jack Calhoun, and it's simply the matter of with West Georgia leaving the Gulf South Conference, I think the next major rivalry that we can sincerely push as a marketing thing for Valdosta State, VSU versus West Florida. I think, and I'm pitching that now, I think that maybe be the next VSU West Georgia. It's like the big marketing rivalry.
Yeah, we've talked about before. They play us tough in almost every sport, particularly in football. Each of the last two matchups have gone down to the wire.
Of VSU West Georgia. And this kind of brings me to this point as well. You've been here for a long time here at VSU, and you've seen the evolution of the Gulf South Conference in of itself. When you guys played in divisions, when you guys had teams in Arkansas, when you guys had teams out in Arkansas, Harding, Ouachita Baptist, Southern Arkansas. Can you talk about just like playing through the evolution of the GSC to where we are now? What were some of those games like against like Ouachita Baptist and Henderson State?
Well, and that Western Division was really good. Like they were, that was a hard, when you matched up against those teams was hard. But I want to go to like the North Alabama. You guys don't like
North Alabama.
Listen, if you played in Flowers Hall on a Saturday afternoon, like it was one of the best D2 rivalries ever. Like it was so good. And I don't remember the days back when Jacksonville State might have been here. That goes a little before even me or whatever.
That goes a little further back, like 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
that's 80s.
So I think as you look at the trajectory of the league and the evolution, I mean, the Gulf South has always been one of the best in the country.
Yes.
I wish that, because I'm a football guy. I'm the basketball coach, but I'm a football guy.
Yeah.
Like
I've seen you on many sidelines for the games here, and
But like we need to make sure like Gulf South football is protected and developed. Like as we add more members to the, like we only have those true rivalries, and they're incredible. Us, West Al, Delta, and West Florida. Yeah, like those are incredible rivalry games. I don't want to see any of that lost or whatever. So hopefully it continues to evolve, and maybe we bring some football teams in instead of just bringing a team in that has a bunch of sports. I'd like to see them have football.
Absolutely. And we talked about, some of the newer teams that joined, like a Trevec and Nazarene that joined over this year, and, how much that, that adds into the schedule. But speaking of, the evolution, do you see how much, the game has grown in terms of how it's played, not only at the collegiate level, but also at the professional level? What do you think in terms of not only the game, the way the game is played, but in terms of when it comes down to recruitment and who do you bring in? How has, that philosophy, changed from when you started at VSU and where you are now?
Yeah, so, it's funny. We talk about this. Like when I started, because I've been here a long time, 20 years, you've got to realize that you didn't have the social media information that you have today. Mm-hmm. So what do I mean by that? Let's say there's a kid playing, in Jacksonville, Florida. Mm-hmm. Maybe the Jacksonville people know about him and the close people around. This is back a long time ago. Yeah. And so we could sneak in there, maybe get somebody like, a surprise, or maybe they call them sleepers. They're still good players, just people don't know about them. Now, everybody in the country knows where every player is. It's on your phone. Like you just click, who's in the portal today? Click, click, click. There's the people that enter. Yep. So it has become a more, not that kids would go nationwide, but it's become a nationwide recruiting battle. Yeah. Schools are coming in after the best players that maybe you had a chance to kind of sneak because that people didn't know about them. And now, like everybody knows about them. Like it's crazy. It's really kind of changed, and it's interesting. It'll be talked about throughout history for the rest of our lives.
Plucking guys out of Seattle, Kobe. Going from Seattle to North Carolina Central. Drew Mills coming from Baltimore, Howard Community College. Malik Leach out of Atlanta. Lucas Brown Jr. and LD Shagana out of Chattanooga. Out of Chat State up in Tennessee. MJ Jones out in Pelham. Carlos and Tony down in Miami and Naples. There's a lot of outreach. There's a lot of outreach with this team.
Yeah, and I think that's always, and as the portal becomes more relevant. Same deal. Somebody goes in a portal. Well, in 10 minutes, everybody in the country that's after a portal kid can see that and can get involved. So instead of maybe battling 5, 6, 7 schools, you might be battling 25, 26, or 27 schools.
Right.
Just makes it harder.
Absolutely. Just, when we had talked, I think last year, talking about, some of your favorite moments at the complex, home of the Blazers. And what is one of some of those games that you just distinctly remember? They are like, man, the atmosphere in here is just, it just, fever. So what some of the games I kind of remember?
Well, and, let's go all the way back in the early part of my career. We beat Augusta State in here. They're ranked number 1.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing about that, one, we had never beaten a number 1 ranked team in school history, but to watch the students rush the floor was really a special moment, like that I can remember off the top of my head. I always think that all our games against West Georgia are special. Like it was just kind of
both men's and women's.
It was so good. Like just great memories. Bo Justice making a double clutch 3, which was maybe before your all's time, to beat West Al at the buzzer. Yeah. Literally brought the ball down and then flicked it, and it went in at the buzzer.
That's insane.
Yeah, some really cool moments, but. The coolest moments that I have, to be honest with you, are getting to know students that come to the games and then seeing them after they're gone and they come back and they're like, man, those games were incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool, for me as a coach.
Yeah. I think that we had talked before, not only as a sports editor and I worked commentary this year, and we've, seen the how much you've, the change of the rotations and how you have, like the way that's kind of like flipped. And, we see that, type of coaching change. Or let me rephrase this. There's been, being here 20 years is a lot. And that it's commended, and it's not often that you get to see coaches, be here this long. And, we had talked before on the podcast about, different coaches that like left in the last like couple of years. So I do want to ask you, what keeps you at Valdosta State in terms of?
Well, I think this. So it's hard to move up in basketball coaching, at least on the men's side. Like it seems to be that the majority of the hires are the Duke assistant, the Florida assistant, so that AD can win the press conference. Yep. That's just the truth. Now, they just hired Ben McCollum out of Northwest Missouri, and he went to Drake, and now he's at Iowa. So you got some Division II guys that can coach. I know that from playing in Division II. Like you guys know, like there's some guys that can coach in Division II.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You just have to have the opportunity. But you guys listen, like one, I love the university. Like I love Valdosta State. Like I just, it's going to always be my home. But I've been able to raise my kids here. All right. And you guys know my kids.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. And I think it's important that I have a colleague that's on the football side that I graduated at the same time of high school. So we've been in the college ranks. And in my 20 years here, Shane has been coaching for 20 years at 9 different institutions.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Shane's kids are grown now, so it's easier for him to do that. But do I really want to take my kids and put them in a brand new school system, and 18 months later, a different school system?
Yeah.
Different, and my kids will always be able to say, hey, Valdosta State is where I grew up.
Yeah.
And the value, like you guys, you might be too young to really understand that, but you will one day. And when your kids can say, Dad, like, it's nice that you stayed here, and they believe, as you see, they believe that gym is their gym. Like they just,
I've seen them put up shots after the game. Yeah.
So thankful might be more of a word than anything. Like I'm just thankful that Valdosta State has had me here this long, and it's been incredible. And I just talked to Hanson today. Coach Hanson and I were talking. Coach Mercer and I are close. I got a lot of people that I'm close with that I've also coached here a long time. So I don't know. You get into a place where you're happy and you can see your kids thrive and you can thrive. Like it's hard to give up. It's hard to give up.
Yeah, and to kind of spin this a little bit towards the basketball side, back towards looking at that future. I remember at our last interview down at Nova Southeastern, you mentioned how this team, you mentioned on this team, even though unfortunately we came up short against Lynn, how you think and you hope that this team can be looked back at as a stepping stone for something greater in the future. Can you elaborate a bit more on that? Because we also have a great group of juniors right now that they all decided to say. I mean, you have Malik, Peter, Lucas, MJ. Who else I got here? Tony, Drew, and all those guys. I mean, we have a great junior core coming up. So what do you think this looks like in the near future?
Well,
this being the
and let me revert back to Southern Poly again. Like we pressed there. Okay, the years that you can really be good are the years where you have returning guards.
Yes,
because they're the ones in the press that make so much happen in that front court, the denial, the steals, the wear you down aspect. So, what I meant by that was I hope that we can look at this team and say, okay, none of them had played this way. They all bought in. We pressed. We won 25 games, went to the NCAA tournament, and we can look back and say, hey, that was the team that really kind of started this ball rolling.
Yeah.
And, if we can keep it rolling and keep doing the things that we're doing, I think we'll get better and better and better. I'll give you an example. Jim Crutchfield at Nova Southeastern, his first year, they were 22-10 or something. Dallas Baptist in the national semifinals this year. Last year was their first year pressing. They were 25-6. This year they were 32-3 or something in the national semifinals. So hopefully we can continue to build. That's my dream.
Yeah. Absolutely. It was just as someone, and I think both of us can attest, this team just left an impact, not just because, it's both of our first years commentating, because I took a couple of home games this year. And
you did a couple of home games with Spencer.
Yeah, with Spencer. And I remember there was one game in particular. It was the one game I did by myself against Thomas University. Yeah. Sorry, Wyndham, I got to make fun of your hometown today because he's from Thomasville. So
that was the game. That was the game I came back with the
women's team
with the Lady Blazers. We went up to Clayton State. And I remember after I came back, I go right down to the scores table. And I'm sitting next to Mike Chasen, and I'm co-calling the game with him halfway through.
Yeah, and I remember because Spencer Van Horn, who runs the play-by-play most of the time, he had given me the, hey, it's going to be you tonight. You ready? I'm like, yeah, I got it. Knowing that I have, nervousness and all that. So I get on the call, and I remember I'm like, all right, Coach Helfer's probably not going to switch up the lineup tonight. Right? And then he pulls, and I see the roster, and I'm like, he's flipped the entire lineup. Because, normally it's I think it was MJ at the time. I think you had
MJ, Carlos, Braxton, Drew, Kobe.
But then that next game, I think it was, I believe it was
Malik, Peter, Lucas, Ethan, and Tony.
And Tony. And I'm just like, no way. I'm like, oh my God, now I got to switch my whole notes. So, seeing the different, and it didn't drop off a beat because it's just you were subbing every 3 minutes, kind of like how you said, and, end up winning by 40. And then it's just, it seems like it just, everything kind of gelled in together. But I do have to ask, when you come in and when you bring a player in, what is the first thing that you look for in a player?
Well, let me say this, okay? When we went to this system, that's different now because you have to find a kid that, number one, can play so hard that he fits with how we play. You got to play that hard.
Yep.
You got to find a kid that's willing to sub out and be just as happy for the teammates that are playing well as when he is playing well. Mm-hmm. You better figure that out in recruiting or else it's going to blow up. You can't bring a kid in that says, oh, yeah, I'm good. And then you're taking them out. And they're like, why are you taking me out? That we have to have guys that are 100% committed and bought into what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one trait that I look for in recruiting. Number one. What do you, when it's, whenever, and, we all sit back and we look at, and it's something that I've talked to Jaylan about is where, and that's especially when I'm graduating this year, how do I want to be remembered at Valdosta State? But for you, what do you want someone to remember you by at Valdosta State? I hope that maybe if they were to remember, they're like, we had a basketball program that we could be proud of. If that's what people say, then I'm good. And that being proud, students, faculty, staff, everybody, everybody sees things differently. We all see the world differently. You know, certain things that you love, certain things I love. Yeah. But if you can be proud no matter what, then that's a huge thing for me. Like, just be proud of the basketball program. And then when you go to your family reunion, and Jaylan, you go to your family reunion, you're like, hey, listen, man, we got a great basketball program. You know, that's really what I want, you know. And for the players in the program to have an experience where, you know, like, it's just special for them. And you know, obviously I get it. Like, not every kid comes to a program in college and gets along with the head coach. You know, I've had kids leave that have been disappointed. You know, that kind of comes with coaching. You know, you just do your best, try to do your best, build the program in the way that you see it, and hopefully it sustains. It has for us. And, you know, I hope everybody be proud of what we've accomplished and what we continue to do. And
I guess one more thing I want to ask here. This season, just in Gulf South Conference basketball, is going, compared this season to next season, things are going to look so incredibly different because we already know. You know, Carlos and Braxton have already made their portal thing public, but for a lot of great GSC players that have come through this conference, you're Chris Terrell, you're KB Brooks, you're Daniel Saylor, you're Tommy Murr, I could Rashad Bolden, maybe I can go on and on about all these great players that you guys have had to battle with. Coming into next year, we're going to be missing all of those guys. Jalen Page out of Trevecca.
Yeah. Jakari Johnson.
We're going to be losing a lot of those guys. So for next year, with all those guys gone, what do you think the GSC is going to look like for basketball with all those guys gone?
I do think, to your point, Jaylan, that there are an extremely high number of highly talented players that are leaving in this class. Look at Huntsville. They didn't lose anybody last year. They had everybody come back, and they lose them all. They lose Blake Campbell.
There's another conference tournament MVP.
Yeah. Thaddeus at West Al. Jaylen at West Al. There's just kids all the way down through all the teams. So I think the GSC probably has a collection of coaches that would be second to none in the country. Like, we just have great coaches in our league. Everybody's going, I don't know. Hey, listen, we have great announcers and great people that are involved with the program.
We went on thing for a while of how we think you got snubbed for Coach of the Year.
I had made the argument because it's like, don't get me wrong, winning 20, I think at that point, 29 or 30 games in a row is phenomenal. But when you take a team that finished 10th the year before to second, and that's in my opinion, that's a great coaching job.
These are my opinion,
but it's just it's not to knock Alabama Huntsville in the slightest, because I think that's an amazing season. And they were number 3 in the country and top 5 in the country pretty much all year. And it's just like, when you're seeing this team personally grow and you're seeing the team go on 10-game winning streaks. And Alabama Huntsville, in terms of all of the games that they played the toughest. The toughest game they had to play is playing against us as a team. I sat there and I'm like, this is it was a complete 180, and you're seeing stars, you're seeing these players just grow within themselves, and over the year, you're just seeing how the chemistry is built, and I'm just like, and again, in the 20th season, I'm just like, man, he has turned this team, complete 180 around. And I felt like, man, there's no way. That's a 13-game improvement from year to year. And it's like, does that not mean anything? That was, again, my opinion. But it's just, it does speak to what you have done as a coach, just being able to turn that around again. And only 2 returners in JC and Braxton. So I just was like, man.
Well, and let me say this, you guys. I was more disappointed that we only had 1 player represented on the all-conference team.
Oh my goodness, that too. Because where's Braxton? Where's
Braxton Williams is not Drew. Drew, we should have had a lot. Now, the problem you have is that a lot of times all-conference teams are based solely on points per game.
Right.
What you average is where you land.
Right.
And our guys trading minutes and maybe some points. Drew averaged 14. I think Braxton averaged 14. They traded some points for wins and NCAA tournament. They did what we asked them to do. But the coaches don't really kind of look at it and say, is if Braxton Williams is not one of the top 10 players in the league, we don't finish second.
Yeah.
We had Carlos on the first team, obviously. Drew Mills, we're not finishing where we are without those guys. They're all conference guys.
They were all, it was a well-balanced team.
Yeah,
and it's
and you've got to vote, you've got to study it and understand. We finished second, and we only had one guy on the top 10, and teams 1, 3, 5 all had 2.
Yeah.
It was really crazy, but so I felt more for it about my kid, my players, that they didn't get maybe some recognition. But again, I'm so thankful. This year was probably one of the most satisfying years, just to watch a team accept the way we were going to play, get better and grow, like you said, and then have success. And it's just was so special.
Absolutely.
You sure made post-game interviews a lot easier for me. I gotta work on ones if we lose. I gotta work on those things.
I used to be like that as well when I had to do it last year. I'm just like, all right.
I can say this. Jaylan, is there anything you'd like to say to Blazer Nation?
That's it. Save that for when I graduate.
That's it. That's got to be on the podcast.
Yeah, that's got to make it though.
You got to put that in.
It will be. That's my send-off episode. That'll be on my send-off episode.
And that's next year for you. Yeah. And I think that because we
stay tuned for it. No,
but here's the other thing too, you guys. You guys have me for life. I'll help you however. You can say, Coach, do you know anybody at this place? I'll make a call even if I don't know anybody. I'll help everybody. I mean, it's so important, to get, those that have helped us, we got to help you. You know? And so I'll help you guys and wherever you choose to go or wherever you land, whatever you choose to do,
Absolutely.
Shane and I are still very close. He worked at the Valdosta times. He went to Penn State, and I think he's since has left Penn State, but I'll help both of you guys, however.
I appreciate that, Coach. We really do. We appreciate you coming on. We thank you so much for your time. And Jaylan, appreciate you hopping on with us as well. You're almost a last-minute addition because I didn't think you were going to be here for this episode today. And so you texted me, you were like, hey, you're doing the interview today, right? I'm like, yeah. And then you're like, he was like, okay, I'll be there at 1. I'm like, oh. Okay.
And I gotta be at baseball in hour and a half. Baseball in an hour and a half.
So but Coach, we appreciate you joining us today.
Appreciate it,
Thank you so much to all of you that have tuned in to wherever you are tuning in from, whether it be our Spectator page for the Torch or for the Inferno Blazer Sports Show. Make sure you give both of them a follow and a like because I co-host for both. So thank you so much for Coach Helfer, Jaylan Scott. I'm Chris Mercer. We thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you guys the next time.